First name's Donnie, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul. Baby, got Dr. D. Poole. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good. I apologize for the delay. Can we start with prayer?
Sure.
Gracious Lord, make us truly thankful for that we're about to receive in this show. We pray that you would touch this show, that we would heal somebody, inform someone, inspire someone. And we promise, Lord, to give you all the praise and all the glory. We're here with Dr. Deandre Poole, Morgan State University's own. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I think you are our first two-time guest.
Okay. Well, I like that. I like it. Sounds like an accomplishment to me.
Now, listen, we brought you on the first show to talk about suicide during Suicide Prevention Month. Any follow-up on that?
Not really. We'll be doing the suicide walk again next fall, next school year in the spring. So starting some planning on that, continuing to try to spread awareness and just put it out there that if anybody is having any suicidal behavior or thoughts, try to reach out for help. And if anybody, maybe you're not, but you're hearing this, don't shy away from being a referral source. Yeah.
Even at Morgan State University, and it's good to have people there who will provide resources, especially for students. I don't know if you know Miss Peaches, Eloise Whittington. She works over in the Morgan State University Global School of Journalism, and she was one of our recent Black Wall Street honorees. And I got to tell you this quick story, Dr. Poole. She's on the maintenance staff. She's a cleaning lady, but she's eventually landed a show on WEAA, and then she went on to start her own podcast. But she shared something at the award ceremony that I know you will appreciate. She said that she finds herself listening to students and giving them encouragement. And it's a reminder that no one is too small to help somebody. No one is too big to help somebody. And you just have to hear her testimony. You know, she had her moments of darkness throughout life, but she was able to encourage students. And the really warm part is when she talked about the students coming back to her. So she talked to them maybe the day before an exam and they were feeling down and blue. She spoke some life over them. And she said they come back telling about the A's that they got on their test. So
nice. That's
yeah,
rewarding when you get that feedback that even if that wasn't what you were looking for, that your input made a difference, especially on somebody young for their future. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing like people. I know you've had students come back to you and thank you for just listening to them.
I've been here for 2 years. I think I've only had that happen once so far. Obviously, the lady who you were talking about has some very, very special tools that she's been blessed with that was obviously transcending over. But students say thank you or come back and let you know somehow a way. Just somebody coming back, period, is letting them know that you're being beneficial to them and that they like you. But I've only had that thank you once so far, which is good because I think I told you last time as a clinician, we rarely get to see the fruits of our labor, which is what brings depression into this field a lot. Most of the time our clients are gone on off in the world, but we don't have them around to even say thank you. So the fact that she got that feedback is really a big blessing, big time.
Yeah. So I was told that my therapist must have a therapist.
When you just said that, you just said something. You said that you're never too big or too small to give help. But I was thinking you're also never too big or too small to ask for help or to need help as well. It goes both ways. And you know something else you just said that stood out to me when you were talking about her. What's her name again?
Eloise, Elois, Whittington, Whittington. You
said that when she was talking to the students, I don't know exactly how you worded it, but you said that she was listening. Listening is a big tool, just like they say on White Men Can't Jump. There's a difference between hearing and listening. But even as a clinician, I've been learning to listen even more, especially in my personal life. Because I'm going to be honest with you, whether your counterparts know it or not, they're telling you what you need the answers to. You may not want to hear it. You may not hear it because you have your own ideas in your head. You're thinking about talking, but just listen to the people. They will give you everything you need. The answers are right in front of you.
I'm guilty. I'm learning to listen. Look, I have an award ceremony coming up Wednesday. It's my 30th year as a journalist. They're celebrating me over at Coppin, where I got my bachelor's.
Nice.
But we're going to give away some Black Wall Street awards, as always. One of the honorees, her name is Dr. Judith Wilner, a little short Jewish lady. And the class I took with her was called Critical Listening. Like you say, hearing and listening. Listening is assigning meaning.
Yeah.
Talking to my significant other yesterday. She said, "You're not listening." And we don't want to hear it. As men, we don't want to hear that. You better.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah, you're right. Sometimes you have to.
Like you say, they telling you what you need to know.
Sometimes it could be reflection, though, because in the moment, like you were saying with your significant other, if that's a heated moment at the time, you may not be able to hear it. But later on, when you sit down and sit back, you kind of run it back, and then maybe, you hear it at a later time. The brain is able to process it. But Miss Whittington, like you said, some people, like clinicians, for example, are trained to listen better, to understand what they're hearing. That should be the stand apart from us with non-trained individuals. But some people are just born with that ability, and it sounds like Miss Whittington may be one of those people. Yeah.
You made me think of my grandma. Boy, my grandma has some solutions.
Uh-huh.
I think everybody's grandma has some solutions.
Yes.
I was running late for an event once. I said, "Granny, can you press my shirt?" She whipped out that ironing board. She pressed the front right panel, the front left panel, and the collar. I said, "Granny, what about the back?" She said, "You're going to have your jacket on. You said you're in a rush." Okay.
How'd that work out for you? Did that work out?
What did I have to say?
Now, how many times when you were in a rush after that did you do the same thing?
I tried not to be in a rush. I mean, come on, man. We come from the old school. You got to get the stars. Take that joint to the cleaners. But as we're talking about our ancestors,
yes,
today's topic is on that very thing. You want to take it from here?
So, yes, our ancestors, and we all know that, well, we should know, but I'm sure we've all heard that when we're talking about history, for example, right? Why do we study history when we're in school?
We study history to find out what happened before us so that we don't have to repeat it, or we at least know the game that they played before and don't fall for that same trick again.
Yes. So, and that's the same thing when we're talking about specific history within our family, whether that be history that we know because we lived it, or maybe we heard of things that have been passed on through word of mouth, which is part of our culture. That's the same format when we're talking about family. We need to learn from what happened in the past so that we can fix it in the future and help with the evolution of our family, but as people of African descent as well. Now, there's another question. What is one of the major things that has bit away and broken apart the family systems within the African American community?
That's a loaded question. Can you be a little more specific?
It's a historical content. It's really, really big. It went on for 200 plus years, and it
Slavery.
starts with an S.
Slavery.
Slavery, yes.
Yeah.
Now, we've all heard of the Willie Lynch theory and been able to put it into, whatever context that we've been dealing with it. But one of the main objectives of that was to break apart the family systems.
Yes.
I don't think that we understand as African Americans how successful that was and still is. You know what I mean? It's still going on to this day. Any of the
you get ready to blow our mind. I see it coming down.
Any of the family.
I just had a flashback of how interrelated we are, because they broke up families. So they sent your sister, sent my brother 2-3 states over, and God forbid 200 years later descendants of that same tree should meet and marry.
Yeah. Oh my God. See, now you're going further into my thing. So now we're talking about the main topic that I wanted to talk about with this is family estrangement. Family estrangement, being estranged from each other for whatever reason. Now, if you look at any of the dynamics or the family problems within an African American or any African diaspora family, but let's just stick with African American for the most part because it's more simplistic. It's what we experience. You could trace that dynamic back to the roots of slavery, and so when you go on this journey, because some of our topic conversation will be about genealogy. And when you look at genealogy, you start to look at family history beyond what the oracle, told you, or what the word of mouth, told you. And when you can go all the way back to the 1800s and see that family dynamic continuing, what we call it in psychology or psychodynamic psychology is cyclic interactions, cyclic behavior, cyclic meaning a cycle of behavior. Everything we're going through right now, it's the same thing our family members were going through in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Nobody has tied those together the way they should to break that cycle. You know what I mean?
No.
Well, I have an example for you. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Oh, I am giving you an example. As an African American, I was a lot of times we have this, but I was told a lot that because there are a lot of you, everybody can see what type of complexion I am now. I'm a pretty dark-skinned man, but there were a lot of light-skinned people in my family from before, and so we were told that we were Native American. You know what I mean? And I had been hearing a lot of this happen with other families within the African American community. Yeah. And a lot of those families, when genealogy started to be available to us, a lot of those families were going through and finding their family history and finding out that it wasn't necessarily Indian heritage that they were tapping into or that made them look more lighter. It was actually, which it isn't a big shock. It's just hard to deal with, but it was actually, they were descendants of a slave owner. I mean, let's be real. We know that in history, our women and men sometimes did not have a choice of whether or not our slave owners or slave masters, there is a difference, impregnated them or not. That wasn't our choice. And when we were talking about that earlier, I wanted to say that that's what kind of sets us apart as African Americans, also with people of African descent in the Caribbean, is that we don't have control over our genes, over our history. We are mixed mostly with a lot of white European descent, yeah. All of us, yes, but we don't have control. That wasn't our choice. You know what I mean? We don't have control over that.
I want to put one caveat in there.
Mm-hmm.
I am of the understanding that there were Black people in the Americas before the European came here.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of us came to America after Christopher Columbus was following the Moors.
Uh-huh.
So I'm
gonna have to agree with that and and believe that. I have a frat brother who totally subscribes to that. And I definitely believe that, just because of the fact that if I don't believe that, what I'm saying is that people of African descent were not smart enough, intellectual enough to build a boat and sail.
We
You
were
know
the
what I mean?
first sailors.
We were the first at everything, really. But yeah, we were the
Yes,
first sailors. So
yes.
um, I have to believe that there were people of African descent who were here before that.
And this is somewhat related, but I have to rebuke it because we're talking to you on the campus of Morgan State University. When I first started grad school, I had a professor at Morgan, a white professor named Overton. And he said to me in class, and I heard the same thing down at Clark when I was going to Morehouse from another white professor, how the Greeks started civilization. And I wanted to beat him up because I know better. I know the Greeks and everybody else got all of their knowledge and information from Mother Africa.
Yes. Sometimes people use that as an argument when we're talking about Black Greek letter organizations. By the way, I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated Gamma chapter. And one of my sorors answered this question years ago. Why do Blacks call themselves Greeks when Greek is a European ancestry? It's because Greek culture comes from African culture. African civilization, when we're talking about pedagogy or anything, all started in Africa along the Nile River, period. So yeah, definitely. We were here before. How that worked out as far as when the slaves came over and were integrated into the community, or how much of the African population who sailed over before slavery were left, how they mixed with Native Americans, I'm not so sure about that stuff, Mr. Glover. That's something I'm gonna have to continue
Well,
to
I can give you
research.
some real 1, 2, 3 facts. I gotta
Go
share
ahead.
it with you.
Mm-hmm.
You can Google Luzia Brazil, Luzia and Brazil.
I'm listening. Go ahead. Just writing down a note.
Luzia's is the oldest bones found in America.
Outside of Africa, yeah.
Mm-hmm. South America, actually, in Brazil. They found the bones in a cave 12 to 14,000 years old. They say that the Indians that came from Asia through the Bering Strait, the lighter skinned ones, were here 10 to 12,000 years old. So we know, and when they first put the DNA together, this was a Black woman. I don't know if you've seen Brazilians, but some of them got that forehead that's unmistakable. Interestingly, within the past year, they've changed the prototype that they've come up with. Still dark skinned, but they've narrowed the nose. And I know that's a bunch of cockamamie BS. That's number one. The oldest bones in the Americas are that of a Black woman, Luzia. Number two, the oldest DNA on Earth comes from the San Bushmen in Namibia. SAN Bushmen. They have the oldest DNA on the planet Earth. That wasn't it. In Las Vegas, no, in Arizona. Well, in Las Vegas, they got the Luxor Hotel. Have you ever been to the Strip?
Mm-hmm.
They got the Egyptian-themed hotel, the Luxor. I stayed there. Triangle joint. I asked myself, how in the world, of all of the places, how they come up with the Egyptian theme out here in Las Vegas? What they know about Egypt? I'll tell you what they know about Egypt. There's a place out there called Kincaid's Cave.
Mm-hmm.
And in Kincaid's Cave, they found Egyptian artifacts. As a matter of fact, across America, North America, there are 450 mound pyramids. These are pyramids made of grass across the Americas. So it makes you ask yourself, what was going on in this land in 1200 AD, in 1300? There were people here, and I believe they were Black. And then the third piece was the richest man, the richest king of all time, richer than any king today, the richest king of all time, Mansa Musa out of Mali. He got on a ship and traveled west. And there's not much that I've learned afterwards, but it has been said that he's come to the Americas. And then you know about the Olmec heads down in Mexico, Nigerian, they real big pleptoid nose, thick lips, straight out of Nigeria. Big old stone heads, Olmec heads. So, no, I don't believe nothing, especially some people who are a part of oppressing me, I can't believe anything they say.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. That's some good information, definitely.
So we were here long before Columbus, long before, I mean, hundreds, thousands of years before any of them. The oldest Europeans are black. People don't know that. Look it up. But okay, all right, I took you out for it. You just got
No. You didn't. You're right. You're right there. I'm just trying to see, like, the ones that the us that were here before. How did we integrate when they started to bring
I'm glad
slaves
you
over
asked
and
that. I
things of
wrote
that
about it in my
nature?
second book, I Am Black Wall Street.
Uh-huh.
So there was three Seminole Wars. You heard of the Seminoles, Florida State Seminoles.
The
Seminoles,
Indians, right?
yes, it's a word from I think Spanish, cimarrones, cimarrones, and that just means the wild ones. So Indians from different tribes were hardtailing to get away from these Europeans with the guns, and they headed south and south, further south, ended up in Florida. Florida was owned by Spain until 1831. So
Mm-hmm.
if you were an African who was enslaved and you could escape to Florida, as long as you were willing to convert to Catholicism and fight for the Spanish crown, you could get your freedom. See, they paint this picture like all black people like, yes, yes. Come on, man, we was fighters, we warriors, we strong. So between the Indians in Florida and the blacks who escaped there, they came together and they fought against the Europeans. In the Second Seminole War, one of the leaders was Chief John Horse. He has the most amazing story of any black man you ever read about in this country. He fought alongside the Seminole Indians with his team, and they fought against people like Andrew Jackson, who wanted to put them back in slavery. See, down in Florida, these blacks had guns. So white people wanted to move to Florida, like, oh, you got to go down there and check them black people because they popping on. So they fought to a truce, and then they went out they were given land in Indian territory, which later became Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And they were on the Trail of Tears. And this counters the theory that all blacks on the Trail of Tears were enslaved. Not true. So when they get out there, they had this thing called the Dawes Commission, Dawes. Group of white men sitting at a table, and it was like this: you black, you Indian. You black, and you Indian. They look at your physical features and determine. So they determine what race you were. Who the heck who are they? So that's how it went down. Some real racist bull feces.
That sounds like a whole nother show.
Somebody else determined if you were Indian. And then you ever heard of $5 Indians?
No.
These are white people who paid $5 to get on the list out there as an Indian. So they could benefit from all of the, like, Indians can have casinos and things like that. And I don't mean any disrespect. I don't know if people like to be called Indians, but the indigenous peoples.
Native Americans, yeah.
Yes, Native Americans.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. That's a lot
people
of...
are confused about this. And when their self-esteem is low, you can't possibly expect them to pick up your self-esteem.
Yes, but see, all of this history we're not knowing. And I mean, I believe that even within slavery, there were a lot of strong people. There weren't always yes and masters, but us learning our history beyond slavery in itself could lead to us having more self-esteem today. Because there's still images out here today. One thing I do to keep up with the young people, Mr. Glover, is I watch YouTube and I read the comments, and I can see young people. When you're behind the computer screen, you can say whatever you want. So that person that's sitting next to you that can't say anything, go read their comments. I mean, I'm just generalizing. Read their comments online and you can see, and I see people say things like, blacks were just always slaves anyway. So what difference? Things of that nature. So I don't know. This type of, obviously, it's not put into our school system. So unless they're studying it on their own, or unless they have a wonderful person like you and their family, sometimes they don't even know that they need to research that. So we need to get that out there so that we can get a more holistic view of who we are. And I promise you, it helps who we are now, huh?
We got to teach their parents.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
We got to
Yes.
teach
Yes.
parents
Yes.
to school and the children to school. Too many parents don't. So we give away these Black Wall Street awards. I don't know what you're doing Wednesday, but we're going to put you up in our next round of awards. But we sell it. We give the awards away in the spirit of entrepreneurship. But when I first learned about Black Wall Street out there in Tulsa, Oklahoma, it blew my mind. Do you know about Tulsa's Black Wall Street?
Yeah. There was a massacre.
Yeah, 36 square blocks of black businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But we knew about it from a song and we didn't even know it. You remember the Gap Band?
Yes.
Gap Band had a song. You dropped the bomb on me, baby. You dropped the bomb on me. Now we all thought it was about love.
Mm-hmm.
It was about love, but it was
like a double entendre.
Yeah, a double entendre. They dropped. It was the first time the American government dropped a bomb on an independent black community. And so then I learned about the Tulsa's Black Wall.
The American Army dropped the bomb on Americans.
On Americans.
Yes.
Just like they did in Philadelphia with Move.
Yeah.
But then I learned that Tulsa wasn't the only Black Wall Street. There were actually 3 official ones. Another was in Richmond, Virginia, made famous by Maggie Lena Walker. And then the 3rd official one is in Durham, North Carolina, made famous by North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance. But check this out. I told you them black people with Chief John Horse went out there to Oklahoma. There were 70 to 80 black towns in Oklahoma. There were over 500 black towns in East Texas. They don't tell us this. And let me tell you something else. Juneteenth last week, America to try to whitewash that. If you go Google what Juneteenth is about, you got to know what you're looking for. Juneteenth is about the black people in Texas who found out 2 years late.
Yeah.
But I get it. Now it's a national holiday, but I want our people to not forget how and what. I don't want it to get whitewashed this June. No, know the damn truth. We know Gucci, Battaglia, whatever that famous. We know all of this other stuff. We better know our history. And like, we better know our own family history. And I'm going to tell you something else. You done got me started. One last thing. Ancestry.com.
You going to promote them?
Who owns it?
I have no idea, but
I want to find out who owns it. If it's a particular group that owns it, but they have no sampling. They have no sampling for black Indians.
Uh-huh. Explain that a little bit more, because that's interesting.
There were black people here before the European arrived. There's no sampling for them. Where you gonna say they came from? You go do an Ancestry.com test. They say you come from 5% Senegal, 10% Mali, and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. They have no sampling for the indigenous peoples to this land because they never thought of it. They coming from a Eurocentric perspective. They're limited. I want to say the Mormons own Ancestry.com, but whoever it is, it's a specific group. It's not what we think. And then we got to do our own research. And another thing, Dr. Helena Hicks, God rest her soul, she said, not all blacks got a history of slavery. And not all whites got a history of freedom. There were white slaves in this country too. Chinese slaves. They don't tell you about that.
No, they don't. Well, no, not in detail. They don't emphasize it and make movies about it like they do with us, although I love a slave movie, but yeah, you know what I mean. But when I was looking for that Indian in my family, I didn't quite see. That's why I asked about that sampling, because I have, when you go on that website or start to do genealogy, you'll find other family members. But so there'll always be about 3 of them who are like the ancestry gurus. So there's another one in my family, and we were kind of talking about this, and she was telling me of some trace of Indian that she had to seek out on some other site way on down the line. And that's why I was curious about that and have to research more about no indigenous sampling. I can see that, but on that website that you mentioned, I did not find Indian, but what I did find was a slave owner in my family. My fifth great grandfather, his name is James Merriweather. Right? You can look him up. He has a
Like
Wikipedia.
Merriweather Post Pavilion.
Yes, he has
like
a Wikipedia.
You a check.
Listen, he has a Wikipedia page. Okay, he has a Wikipedia page about being this whole Revolutionary War hero. It says nothing about slavery. He has his father also has a Wikipedia page as well. So looking at that and looking at these people, at this slave owner, but then also having to compute that in my mind, this is my grandfather. This is one of my blood forefathers. The same blood running through this man that can enslave a whole race of people is within me. That was a hard pill to swallow, and that's something that African Americans have to deal with that's unique to some of our brothers and sisters within the African diaspora. What you think about that?
I'm gonna find them. I'm gonna take my lawyer, and we're gonna get that check.
There's a whole county in Georgia named Meriwether County after these people. I could still find or see some of the white family members who are probably, Mr. Glover, who are probably living on the same land that we were enslaved on for free right now down in Thomasville, Georgia. We don't get that.
I think you need to lay a claim. I think we need to go to Congressman Kwesi and Poole and start talking about some reparations, some restitution. If France can continue to get restitution from Haiti, because Haiti, the Haitians, like Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and Bukiman from Jamaica, if they can force Haiti to still pay restitution to this day, then we can make Merriweather pay restitution to us to this day.
Okay, I'm gonna put that on the. Yeah, I'm gonna research that.
Can be a felon and can become president. Then black people who are felons should be able to be president too.
Donald Trump is white.
Privilege is on trial, and it ain't going. It's only gonna last for so long.
Yeah,
you got to earn your way. You can't be skating because your granddaddy skated. You had to pay your way, son. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about them other people.
Now, Mr. Glover, let me say this real quick because we're getting low for time. And I just want to say that when you're doing genealogy, sometimes, especially when it first came out, it's about researching more ancient past history. I'm using that word ancient lightly, but history before slavery and far, where we don't necessarily have the word of mouth of the story. But that everybody who's studying genealogy is not necessarily looking for that. Some people are looking for more recent history. You know what I mean? And genealogy has definitely developed because for example, if you watch any of our crime shows, they're now using it to solve crimes. You know what I mean? Sometimes they're able to
use it to get restitution. See, you just made a point. You can go down there and force them people in Thomasville, Georgia, to take a DNA test.
Yes. Well, let me ask you this. So I was getting to this because
we coming to get our money. Y'all might as well get that checkbook right.
Let me ask you a question then, because I got on Ancestry.com specifically because I was looking for my grandfather, my mother's father, right? I found who he is. His name is Errol Warner, right? He was born in Maria, Tobago. You know what I mean? So now there's a whole Caribbean culture, heritage to me that I had no idea about until last October. So now that we have the genealogy, right? And now I know a country of origin. Now, then what? Should my mother be able to use that genealogy to go down to Trinidad and Tobago and gain some type of dual citizenship or something like that? Think it can work that way as well?
I think it should be able to, or she just go down there and file citizenship anyway.
Yeah.
It's not like you need somebody's permission. You can have dual citizenship wherever you want. And we as black people ought to, especially if Trump get back in there and he do all of this fascist things like getting rid of the government agencies and all of that silly stuff.
Yes. Yeah. So, like when we're talking about family estrangement or history or whatever, there's a genetic component to it. You know what I mean? And in psychology, biopsychology, genetics accounts for almost 50% of our makeup right now. That's why they do a lot of twin studies. That means, for example, when we're doing twin studies, those twins, you see it on TV, it can be, highlight, illustrated there, where when twins are separated at birth, right? And then you bring them back when they're older and they study the similarities. And it's overwhelming that because of genetics, DNA, you can be identical, behave identical, talk identical, what you're doing with your hands, the way you hold your head. Somebody else is doing that exact same motion because they have the genetics that you have. So we have these situations a lot of times in our family, which is just a replica of the slave narrative that is not our history, but was imposed on us with the father being outside the home or whatever. And then you have this offspring who doesn't know who they are, who's going to have a hard time learning who they are because they can't even observe their parent or their grandparent. And if you get an opportunity, right? Maybe if you're this person that was estranged and then came back together with a parent, God forbid, but if you ever are able to observe that, it's just the thing that's totally given from God. The similarities, how you can be similar to somebody who you've never even really met. But it's also very humbling and a way to really learn who you are. Questions that you may have had. You may have a stepfather and a whole step family that is very positive, that has accepted you as a child, but there are always going to be questions on the inside because of that DNA, because of the genetics. And if you even just get a chance to observe, your biological family that you may be estranged from, you will be able to answer so many questions about yourself that you will never get from your step family. You know what I mean? And I really want to just put that importance out there for our community because I think it's important to impair some of those cyclic dynamics so we can move forward, move forward in a more healthy way as African Americans, but also of just people of the African diaspora overall. I got you quiet for a while. What you thinking?
I'm thinking that we are not the only people whose history was interrupted. So when I meet people from Africa, when I meet people from China, I ask them, how many generations can you go back? Because it's easy to assume that because they are in China, that they can go back 17 generations. Not true. Some people can't go back 2 generations. There's so many things that can interrupt a people's history. War, tsunamis, natural disasters, racism, slavery. I mean, slavery is worldwide. It happened in many places. It happened in Europe. It happened in Asia. We've seen the ancient Romans. We've seen the Arabs. We see modern day Africans in North Africa, Black Africans being enslaved by Arabs. That thing is real. So we're not the only ones who can't go back, but so far in our history. Have you thought of that?
Yeah, but sometimes when I'm thinking of like aspirin diaspora type of stuff, I try to be real because internalized racism is a thing and we're all guilty of it. We can't, because white supremacy is so strong.
The notion of white supremacy.
The notion of white supremacy is very strong. I don't
think there's ever a thing called white supreme to who. They supreme to me.
So sometimes when I'm thinking of us as an African diaspora, I'm real careful not to springboard us off of other people, especially of white people or whatever. I just try to keep the comparisons just with us sometimes.
I just look at our history. I look at the facts, the science. The science say the oldest DNA comes from Namibia, Southern Africa. I know this pretty brown skin comes somewhere by way of Africa, however long it took.
So now, if you have, sometimes back to genealogy, what I've learned is that when you are researching history, whether it's past or present, you might not get the, well, first of all, when you find out something, it's just going to bring more and more questions, number one. But number two, sometimes you don't get the answers right away. Sometimes you have to wait, just kind of wait, and it'll come to you. So I have a scenario for you. You know, you went out on, I don't know if you did or not. This is all hypothetical, right? You went out on whatever one of those genealogy sites are, right?
I
And
did.
you were researching, okay, and you were researching past ancient history, whatever the case, or present, whatever you were whatever you were looking for, you found. You've worked through it with yourself, with your family, with your mental health professional, with your pastor, whatever the case is, and you've kind of moved forward, right? You're sitting back, 2 years go by, 3 years go by. All of a sudden, somebody else puts their DNA in there, and you forgot all about this. You're not even dealing with it anymore. Now they put their DNA in there, and boop, that you pop up. Now they're messaging you. I'm your, I'm your uncle was my, and now they've connected themselves to you as your family member, but you have no idea who this person is. As they start talking a little bit, you might say, well, Uncle Charlie was, in Alabama at this time, or this did happen. They're trying to figure out, how do you respond to that person as a Christian man, right? This person that does not know anything about their family. You probably have spent your whole life with a father and they don't even know them. How do you respond?
With love.
Uh-huh.
With love. With an open mind.
What does that look like?
Whether we're related or not. I mean, with love. If we aren't able to do that, then maybe we shouldn't have never went looking in the first place. But with love. I mean, we've certainly had more traumatic circumstances than finding out our history. And I mean, considering how prevalent the rapes were of our grandmothers and great great grandmothers, we know we got white people in our bloodline somewhere, maybe, possibly. We know how black and white tends to make light. We know what happens to the have mixed race children. We shouldn't be traumatized. I mean, what's there to be traumatized about? Talk to that person.
Well, from doing genealogy and going through this, what I found is that people can be very, very protective of their family secrets. Very, very protective. When it
Okay.
starts getting
So
into,
we all got trauma. We all got good and bad. If they can be protective, you just let it go and pray over it, just like you would a boss that you want to take out back and hit upside the head with a stick.
I think for moving forward for our young kids and stuff, sometimes in the black community overall, but again, I want to keep it to African diaspora, we don't always keep it real. That's an old school, new school term
Oh
with
yeah.
our children.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
when we get
And
back to
mothers get mad at the father who rolled out and never tell their child about their father's people. I've seen that, and that's just mean.
more specifically, right on your on that example you just gave, is mothers never tell their children the details, right? But in that relationship behind the father running out. And I think that's even more important, Mr. Glover, because when we're talking about genealogy, and I'm telling you the identical thing, everything your parents went through as far as relationships, you're going through. The thoughts that they had when they were making decisions in that relationship, those are the same thoughts that you're now having. So if you can have this example of a parent, not of Mary J. Blige singing love songs, but of your actual parent in their relationship, it can help you make decisions so much better. You know what I mean? Within your life. But because sometimes in our community, we're not as transparent as we can be or as we should be, the younger one may miss that opportunity, you know what I mean, to learn from the past and make a better choice going to the future. And sometimes because of guilt, or we can be very shameful or judgmental sometimes in our community, we don't want to share those stories. But the more transparent you are with your children when they get to a certain age, probably around puberty, when they're starting to make these choices, the outcome will be so much better in the future. I promise you. Really, so that's for all the viewers out there. Please, when your children get towards that age where they're starting to gain the hormones in order to reproduce, just talk to them. Talk to them, but talk to them deeply. Don't be too embarrassed about the mistakes, because if you don't, they're going to make those same mistakes. I promise you.
All they needed was my mother for 5 minutes, Lily Glover. She gonna give you 3 rules. Number 1, at 18, at 18, you're leaving. College, military, or work, but at 18, you're leaving. She was confident that by 18, you will have learned how to wash for yourself, cook for yourself, clean for yourself, work and provide for yourself. So I don't want to hear that thing. Some people say, oh, you shouldn't put the kids out there. Lily Glover said at 18, you're leaving. She told you at 15, it was the countdown, 16.
She still say that today?
Uh-huh.
Would she still say that today?
Damn right.
With some of our children, you know, going on and getting master's degrees, and some of the jobs calling for more education than normal. So maybe, you know, just high school diploma might not work. You got to go through this, and this, and you need a little bit more support out of that mess.
That's a good question. But for now, at 18, they're getting the hell out of my house. Let me tell you why. A bird can never fly if it stay in the nest.
But it can't fly if it leaves the nest too early either.
They can't. If they can buy a $300 belt, they can pay rent.
Look, if they spending $300 on a belt, they don't need to be out here because they haven't learned how to be mature with their money yet.
Somebody allowed them to do that.
Uh-huh.
So when I got some of my first job, 12, 11 years old, I had to hit my mother off the top. That's how the rule was. You bringing money in this house? Oh, you got to break your mother off. Second rule, don't bring no babies across the doorstep. Not one. No babies. And number 3, own your house. And I'm the youngest of 4. She batted 4 for 4.
Now, well, how does she teach you how to save? Because that's important. And I don't think our parents don't always teach this stuff you're talking about, budgeting. If you really want your child to leave out at 18, you need to teach them that. How to save. If you're going to get that $300 belt and you must have it, what do you need to have in place before you go for that belt? How do you open a bank account? You know, old school, balancing the checkbooks. I think it's unfair for us not to give our children those tools and then expect for them to fly at 18 and then criticize them when they're
on social media all day. Facebook. How many times we check Facebook a day? 4 times. LinkedIn, TikTok. Well, go to creditkarma.com.
Uh-huh. Go there
and see what your credit score is.
Mm-hmm.
Real simple. What's next?
What's next after you check that credit score?
You know about creditkarma.com, right?
I do. Now. So I didn't when I was 18.
If we can check Facebook, and you're right. The one thing that I was not prepared for in college, I could only depend on common sense. As soon as I went away to Morehouse, I was getting all of these credit card offers. But common sense say, don't borrow what you can't pay back. But the credit cards, they come at our students very early. So you're right. Financial literacy is imperative. I mean, I had a bank account, 15, 16 years old, war bonds, those things. Yeah, it was given. It could have been better. It could have been much better. Creditkarma.com.
Give your children those tools. Another thing.
Stay away from student loans.
Mm-hmm.
If you can. I say get the education though. If student loan is the only way you can, I say get the education. Learn about protecting your money like trusts.
Yes.
And other tax shelters.
And keep going. Talking about things like investing.
Stocks,
401ks that can be saved in order to, when they're planning to pay back those student loans, teaching them. I'm just still learning about 401ks and 403bs today. I'm 43 years old.
We
They could have
all
told me
are.
that when I was 16. But see, now when you want to talk about our white brothers and sisters and counterparts, and even go further and talk about people of high, middle, and higher SCS, they teach their kids this stuff
I want
before they leave.
to preface this. We are 15% of the population. We got every possible American white law against us. There's been a war against us from our very first interaction with white people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not impressed with this person over here who has benefited off of my trauma financially.
And still are, yeah.
But not all of them benefit. Because I live in Santana, and you know what I got running around in my alley? White addicts.
Mm-hmm.
What's their excuse?
You know, I don't.
You had a 400-year head start on my people, and I look out in my back alley, and you out there smoking Ready Rock, smoking crack.
Glover, real quick, it's time for us to. When I was in my internship, I was me and two white people who I was cool with. They tried to talk to me one day about white guilt, and I don't get it because I'm over here on this side. So it's hard to see that when I'm over here, which can also help me understand how it's hard for them to see me. But I don't understand white guilt. To me, if I had these privileges, I would use them to my advantage. So that's a whole nother thing. I'm not subscribing to that. But what I will say about the drug seeking people that are in your alley, they still have it better than we do, because when I
called me the N-word. I say, white lady, you gotta get out of my alley. She said, excuse me, do you own this alley? I said, well, by golly, I do. She said, you
so y'all own that part you standing on.
She said, you effing N-word. I said, really? I said, you stay right here. I went in the house and closed the door, because what I was not gonna do was bust her head and get locked up, and she was squatting in my house when I come home from jail.
Yeah, there's a lot of but you know, for her, what I was gonna say, for her and for all of those people who come from the opioid, epidemic, they have rehab facilities for them, and their, addiction is subscribed to mental health. Now, when the crack era was going on, they didn't have those rehab facilities for us. They had jail. They had jail. And also they said that our addiction to that drug, those epidemics, was due to our personal characteristics, not due to mental health problems. So yes, even in that epidemic of drug, they still have an advantage over us. Absolutely, as a drug addict.
They do.
That's horrible. That's a hard pill to swallow.
And that's why people like Donald Trump push this fascism. If he gets reelected, he's going to bring a whole list of sweeping changes to America.
Remember, he tried to go to Tulsa that day during the 100 of the massacre.
He's a slick one.
Yeah. Now I hear a lot of our people already saying, well, if a felon can run for president, then I can do blah blah blah. He's white. He's white.
Yeah, but this is the question white people will have to ask themselves. You want your son to be like him? You want your son, look at me. You want your son to be like him?
Mr. Glover, that's an interesting question. And that goes back to listening, what we said at the beginning, because we should ask some people that question. And we might not always get the answer. If they're being really honest, if we had to give them truth serum, we not always get that. Some of the answers might be yes, even from our people. I'm telling you. So, a lot of people really don't understand, or don't exercise right and wrong.
A Christian.
Hey, I wish you could be a fly on my wall sometimes, brother. Yes, we'll sit there and call themselves a Christian.
Not you, but America. This is supposed to be a Christian nation.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah. So
black people make up 15% of the population. That black men alone make up 38.8% of the prison population. Black women are the fastest growing demographic. There's nothing Christian about these people. What's Christ-like about that? They have an addiction to incarcerating people. That's sick. That's mentally sick. You're getting rid of all of the government agencies, so you're changing this country from a republic, from a democracy, to a fascist, right-wing, conservative piece of trash.
Mm-hmm.
with Mr. Grab a Vagina as the president.
Yeah. Right.
Who don't pay taxes. Now, I just announced, we just learned on our 9 o'clock show that there's a new law that's saying that every business has to file a report by the end of the year to show that they are American owned. To not file by the end of the year, it's a $500 a day fine. Let me give it to you specifically. Hold tight. It's nothing but a trick of the devil. These people is nothing but the lie, nothing but the devil. It's called the Beneficial Ownership Information Report. Beneficial Ownership Information Report. And you go to fincen.gov/BOI. fincen.gov/BOI. Matter of fact, let me put it up here for you. Anybody in business needs to go to this right away. There you go, right there. Own a business, you must file a new report, Beneficial Ownership Information Report, because to not do so is a $500 a day fine. And if you just went into business this year, the deadline is quite likely already over. And this is by the Department of Treasury and the criminal investigation. So you got a lot of people setting up companies in America, and this is their way of double checking. So if you're in business, please check that out right there. Keep your stress level down. $500 a day and put a black business out of business, and anybody out of business.
Get ready to ask. I ain't want to harp on that, but $500 a day, is it a cap on that?
Yeah.
Is it a cap on that, or it just goes?
Oh, just keep going up.
Okay. And it's always a tactic somewhere.
We
it's always implemented in that law.
Dr. Poole, there's so much more. When you coming back? We're on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You got to be a little more regular. We got to have you maybe once a week or so, but we have so much to talk about. And we want to keep. How can people get in touch with you?
They can reach me at Deandre.Poole@Morgan.edu. My name on Facebook is DPoole, as you can see below. Because of my resilience, they gave me the line name of Reloaded. So on Instagram, I'm Reloaded5. I have to give a definition to that because that name can be off-putting. Morgan State has an Instagram, Morgan Counseling Center. So any of those places. Yeah.
What fraternity?
Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, Gamma Chapter, 1916 here in Maryland, the first Black Greek-lettered organization in the state of Maryland. I know some other organizations may have a date before us, but as it stands here at Morgan and in the state of Maryland, we're first and we'll always be.
I just spoke to your fraternity about 4 weeks ago. Phil Allen, Scott Phillips.
Yes, he's a delegate.
What's the Basilis? That's the guy in charge, the Basilis.
Say it. I don't know. What you mean in charge?
The person, the leader, the local leader. It's called a Basilis.
Okay.
It's not. Well,
I've never.
LaFawn, that's his name, LaFawn. You know LaFawn?
Oh, yeah. He's the president of the Zeta Sigma chapter here in Baltimore. Yes, I'm a part of that chapter as well, Zeta Sigma.
I recently spoke to that group over at Collins Seafood. They had me speak about the election and so on and so forth. But they've had me speak, and I did a book signing with them. And I wanted to acknowledge one of your founders, one of your patriarchs, A. Philip Randolph. From the Pullman's Porter. He was a mentor to Dr. Martin Luther King. He led the first, if I'm not mistaken, March on Washington, and was very significant in our history as a people in this country. So big up to the Blues.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. A lot of my history we were talking about when you got to talking about Molly and the origin of us comes from my studying within this organization. So yes, everything's full circle. Absolutely.
And please don't let me forget Marvin Doc Cheatham. We're honoring him on Wednesday at my anniversary up in Coppin.
Okay.
Have you ever met him?
Salute to him too.
Have you ever met him?
I don't think so. I know the name though. I may have.
We're good friends, but sometimes we both talk a lot of smack to each other.
Really?
Yes.
That sounds like fun.
Stay out of the middle of that one. Dr. Poole, we thank you so much, and we can't wait to bring you back because we still have more to talk about the genealogy.
We do, yes, and so maybe you need to invite me.
My mother was very fair-skinned, almost could pass for white. My daddy was real chocolate. So in our house, your complexion didn't matter. You better do that damn work.
Okay. That's interesting.
Complexion, do your work.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. That comment you just made can have a whole nother show just in itself. Because what I find is that a lot of us, when it's too dark-skinned, African Americans very rarely have children together, unless they're on the lower SCS. But that's a whole nother story.
Love is love. You love who you love. If I love the white woman, that's who I'm with. That's who I love. That's who I love. I don't care what nobody thinks. They can think what they want. I know some powerful black dudes, and they marry white women. Might not be my choice, but I love them still the same. And in my second book, let me just finish. I told you about Chief John Horse. In I Am Black Wall Street, the other hero is a white man, John Brown. You know about John Brown?
No, tell me.
John Brown, when the blacks went from Oklahoma when the blacks left from down south to Kansas, there was this fight as to whether Kansas was going to be a slave state or a free state. This ran the Civil War. John Brown went out to Kansas strapped. And if you was trying to put black people in slavery, John Brown was popping caps on you. He then did a raid on Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. Harriet Tubman was supposed to be there with him. She told him, I ain't gonna be able to do it. He went out there and got killed, but he went down blazing. He fought for black people's freedom, and he was killing white people.
Yeah, he did what he was supposed to do.
Damn Skippy. So there's some white people I would catch a bullet for. There's some black people I would push in the harbor. Hey, I got a question for you. What do you think about these people swimming in the harbor? I ain't jumping in that damn water. Have you seen that dirty water? I wish I would.
No, I had a friend that did a paddle boat ride there before and said that the water splashed on their clothes and it bleached the clothes like bleach. So ever since then, I've stayed away.
I don't believe that.
I'm just telling you what the people said.
I'm not swimming in it. I ain't put my skin in there.
What's wrong with a swimming pool? We have plenty of swimming pools here in the city.
I was in the Middle East in Jordan. I looked at the Red Sea. The water was clear. These people been there thousands of years. We've been in this country 200 years, and the water's dirty. Hey, let me ask you this: do you think solar global warming is real?
Absolutely.
Did you see Saturday?
Yeah, it was really damn well. Yeah,
that was ridiculous.
Yeah. I'm laughing because I was living down in southern Florida, so what's hot for me ain't hot for everybody. If it gets below 80 at night, it's not hot. But 103 is that's really
for Baltimore. That was like whoa.
That's a lot.
Blowing out the atmosphere.
That ozone layer. Yep. There's a lot of people that don't believe that.
It's real. And let me tell you other thing. Them people messing with the moon, the Chinese and the Russians up there digging up samples. Tell them leave the damn moon alone. The moon ain't bothering nobody. We're not living on the moon. That's the moon and the sun. Go to one of them other planets.
Yeah, you think when they messing with our moon that affects the orbit and again global warming?
They should not be messing with the moon. Moon, sun. You got the sun in the day, the moon at night. Leave the moon alone. They digging up the moon for.
Okay.
Stop Elon Musk because they've gone too far. We had to snatch him, wrap him up, put him in I don't know.
So what about if we living in the days where they have plane trips
so
we can go see the moon just like
you go to the moon.
Brother, man, I'm still trying to make it down to Trinidad and Tobago. Let me get there first before I go to the moon, okay? Let me conquer the Caribbeans and then I'll work on outer space.
Dr. Poole, it's always a pleasure, man. We'll be back next time. Be back Wednesday at 12 noon. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for lifting our spirits. And have a beautiful day.
Thank you. God bless. I enjoyed this.
God bless.
All right.
Good afternoon, world.